So Cameron, thanks for joining Get Up and Scale podcast. Today we have Cameron Clark as a part of our lightning interviews here live, or at least we're live, at the Arrival Conference. Thanks a lot for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. Great to see you and meet some other folks part of your organization.
Yeah. So we're basically interviewing people to get like some of the insights on growing businesses, on kind of what they're doing. And why don't you introduce yourself and kind of let us know a brief background of who you are.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Cameron Clark. I spent 21 years within the tour hospitality transportation industry, having the pleasure to have worked at Hornblower Group, kind of finalizing my career there within growth development strategy. But at some point in life, you got to take that leap as you have from that entrepreneurial role to an entrepreneurial one. And, good Lord's been looking after me and now out on my own venture, building a business.
Yeah, so talk to us about what you did at Hornblower. I think it's really interesting. You had a long career there.
21 years of tourism history is a lot.
Yeah, very entrepreneurial business.
Yeah.
Even though it was larger. So, like, what did it look like when you were there?
Well, when I started there, I was washing dishes, waiting tables. While I was in college, I was drinking money, chance to hang out with friends and play on a boat the way I saw it. Never thought it would turn into a career. Got done, graduated college, and realized my passion was in more experiences than engineering, and found myself back at Hornblower Group. We were just a small California dining boat company at the time. We had markets in San Francisco and Southern California, but look forward 21 years and tenacity, grit, high ambitions, we were able to grow a business that really ended up kind of spanning the world. 2018, it changed when private equity got involved and decided to take a principal position. That was succession planning for our founder and owner, Terry McRae. And at the end of the day, as change happened, you could be a part of that change or you realize you can't. And at which point I decided that it was a great run. I loved the people there, loved the business, loved everything we did as we moved from water to land and beyond. But it was time to, kind of take what I learned and try to go apply it for myself and with others that were like-minded.
That's awesome. So what does that look like now? How are you applying all of that now to what you're doing?
Well, first and foremost, trying not to work with assholes, which is just an inside joke, I guess, that I'd put my foot in my mouth saying that a couple of years ago. But no, that's a core part of it, honestly. I've got 3 core values. Lots of businesses I want to change the world, and they have all these grandiose ideas. It's really a lot simpler for me. I want to work with people I like. I want to work with people that have a similar work ethic, and I want to work with people that have integrity. That's the why. If I do that, then the what we do and how we do it could be anything. Yeah. So what we're doing right now is operations in Alaska, supporting 2 different cruise lines with their expedition operations. We have 25 vessels. We're staffing them with U.S. Coast Guard captains. And it's an immersive experience, not just while on the water, but our vessels and our crew travel with the cruise ships. They'll dine with the customers. They'll give lectures about the geology, the wildlife of Alaska, or their journeys. A lot of our crew are working in Antarctica, kind of in the winter up north, and so they're able to tell those stories. And it's really about engaging with the guest beyond just, we drive your boat.
Yeah.
We are fortunate enough now to provide operations in San Francisco Bay. Nothing is beneath us. It's wastewater operations, and that's a fancy word for poo. And we're literally transporting sewage from Alcatraz so it can be processed properly, and the National Park Service is able to keep fulfill its obligations under the Clean Water Act. So we're taking potable water to the island, removing wastewater. And so, we're grounded in operations. We have some land-based operations now as well, which I'll be able to share a little bit more about in the near future.
Not now? No exclusive?
Not on that part yet, but the brand we're operating under is Land and Sea, with a subset of different personalized brands relevant to the client.
And who is we?
Well, nothing is ever one person. Nothing is ever one person. Right now within our organization, we had 43 captains working for us over the summer in Alaska. We've got about a dozen core personnel that are working with us day to day. So the we is that group. But right now, it's a company, I guess, if you're saying from a perspective of that side. I'm the owner of that company, and I'm working to hopefully have a future where my team is involved in that, where they have an equity stake and position. I believe fiercely in people having skin in the game, and so we're working hard to put that in place with new folks coming in.
Wow. How did you scale to where you're at that quickly? Because I feel like you were. When did the transition happen from Hornblower to where you're at now?
Yeah, so I gave notice in kind of mid 22 at Hornblower, left
Yeah.
January
So
20th.
not
of
too long
23.
ago. Yeah.
Sat on the bench for a year, was gracious enough to have great friends in the industry like Chris Batchelor at Red and provide some work for them. I got to my roots within the M&A space and worked with a group called Arc Malibu and helped sell a company, Fort Sumter Tours, Spirit Cruise Lines to Aramark. Worked with the Marina Group on some acquisitions in the Northeast. And that was great. Hornblower gave me that space and said that wasn't in a competitive market for them.
It sounds like you were really relaxing.
Kai, as you know, Kai, my son is Kai, and we spent time surfing.
Okay.
He can now check off Trussell, San Onofre, Doheny, Malibu.
Nice. Okay.
So I did find some time to ground myself there. But it was really just beginning of this year, November of, got going, and what is that, 9-10 months later?
This is great. I mean, we caught you at the beginning of this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
So someday people can look back on this and say, hey, this is when Cameron first started, right?
Yeah.
What's your vision for this company?
My vision?
Yeah.
I told you. Work with people I like.
Yeah.
Work with people that have a similar work ethic, and work with people that have integrity.
But what do you want to do with it?
I want to go and, not too different than creating amazing experiences. This is something we evolved at Hornblower. It's being in that experiences space. You heard me talk about Alaska. I want it to be immersive, where we can engage with guests and do more than just drive boat, but rather really create something that's memorable for them and be a part of that. And even something as simple, if the toilets don't work, if there's not water on an island, guess what? It's not a great experience. It won't be memorable if you're trying to, what do I go with my 2-year-old, and they're trying to find the bathroom, or it's all about the details.
Yeah.
But that, may sound kind of obscure, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah. And how are you growing this business? Are you funding it yourself? Are you getting investors? What's the?
I saw a little bit of the outside investing world, and I am more about being able to keep that control to myself and others. And so, no, I've been really blessed to put in my own money to get started, to buy some vessels, but we're not at a point that requires outside funding, outside money. And, we'll see what, the good Lord has in store, but I'd like to try to keep it that way and be able to grow patiently and with, in a cognizant way versus, grabbing at cash to try to go do something that's not aligned with our values.
Sure. You're trying to stay focused on your mission to say no to opportunities if it's just a cash grab, basically. Yeah.
So was the vessels that you have now, was that an acquisition that you purchased an existing company that had the assets, or is that something that you went out and did yourself?
Bought the vessels independently. Yeah, didn't buy a business.
Okay.
So bought the
Wow,
boats.
that's a lot of I can imagine that's a lot of work, time, and effort to piece all of that together and build the partnerships with the cruise ships and find the captains. That's a lot of people.
It was a lot that happened fast. Fortunately, again, though, you line yourself with great people, you can do anything. You all know you kind of have a lot of franchisees, folks, and others within your business, and I think that's a big part of it. A lot of people always try to do something by themselves. And before we even signed some of the contracts in Alaska, I'd already started hiring people. Before we finalized agreements in San Francisco, was already focused on hiring people. I probably spent 30+% of my time while at Hornblower interviewing people. I probably spent interviewing 30% of my time finding talent.
That's incredible, actually.
I would look for people anywhere. I'd be on an airplane, I'd look for people. I'd be on a dinner boat, I'd look for people. Because you can't have a great organization without people.
Right.
I think it's kind of people up and profit down.
That's good advice.
What's the best advice for hiring?
Oh, gosh.
How do you find the right people and put them in the right positions?
If that was an easy answer, there'd be one book that I would say this is...
or some of your just key learnings of people you've hired.
Really, I don't like reading resumes and all before interviewing people. Just have a conversation. Just talk. I want to know what makes you tick. Don't give me your LinkedIn profile. Who cares? What's important to you? What are your values? What are your goals? And have just a conversation. I think that's really important.
So you have a big gut check with what they're saying and who they are. I
think attitude,
definitely.
Goals are way more important than than skill at most levels of a business. At certain levels, you need to plug somebody in. You can get yourself in trouble if they don't have the skills, of course.
Captain.
That's right.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He doesn't know how to drive boats, but man, this guy's a great attitude.
No, that's fair.
Don't go in that iceberg.
But I think that's no, there isn't. But even that though, if you got the right person that just you can see if I can give them some of the training, they can get there. So joking aside, if they've got the great skills and they're an amazing captain, but they're an asshole, they're never going to fit in.
Right.
So you can't put skills ahead of alignment with your vision and values. And I think as owners and founders, sometimes we get so scared, like I need somebody, and you make a decision and you hire them, and then the next fear sets in. What do I do when that person's not here?
Right. Yeah.
And then you don't fire them, and it is a drain on the organization, and it's
number
cancerous,
one.
and it kills businesses. That's why those 3 values are so important to me. If you have the wrong people. So trust your gut. And don't be afraid to change. You're like a manager of a sport team. It's like, I love that person, but if they're not pitching good, like at some point.
Well, they've got it a little easier, I feel like, because they've got statistics to back that up, right? Like it's tough for us to be like, this person isn't performing. It's sometimes it's tough to measure. That's the tough part. But
how have you tried to deal with that?
Yeah, that's tough. So my team is only me, director of franchise operations, and a community manager.
Yeah.
So it's only 3 people.
Okay.
So it's relatively easy for me to know if one of them is not performing, right? Like I can see it. We have weekly meetings. Like I know what's happening in live time. But I feel like it's tougher as you scale and get bigger, where you have a team of 20, 30, 40 plus people. Yeah, maybe I have 200 tour guides across the board, but because they're franchisees, they kind of manage their own franchise, their own tour guides, which is easier for me. But it's something I'm curious about, because I know as I continue to scale, like it's gonna be an issue at some point. Like and it has before. There's been some turnover with my previous director of operations, and so like. It's just figuring that out now, so I know what to look for, and so that's why I asked the question, like, how do you find that when they're getting into the role, and how do you, kind of vet them in a way that makes sense to where they do align with your vision? I feel like it's so tough in an interview, because everyone's so good at interviews, nowadays, and it's tough.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing a hat unwavering, and I think you need that unwavering commitment to your values, and you gotta hold to them. And if they're documented. You want a business to be able to run when somebody else changes, and you don't want what you believe in, your processes, your systems, to go out the door with that person. And so I think it's really important that you do have documented processes, systems. What do we stand for? How do we do it? And so it's really then easy. It takes some of the bias out of management. It wasn't a misalignment of expectations or understanding. I avoided the oral instructions, and this was the plan we committed to. We looked at each other in the eye, and you said, yes, I can do that. And therefore, when you aren't achieving that, it's not like there's any burden on the managers or the owner's shoulders on, I just didn't communicate it properly. They didn't understand. So I think if you have an unwavering commitment to that, it does make it easier, even in the interview process. Here's, what we're looking for, and sometimes they'll self-check out. I do try to talk people out of a job before they take it. This will be hard. This will not be easy. This is. And if
I think we do that with franchising to an extent
totally.
too.
Same thing.
Like,
We're franchisees. It's like you got to let them know what they're getting into.
This is what's going to happen when you, are you okay with all of this? Like, you have to show up. You have to do these things. You have
For sure.
to, it's a very important part of that process.
I feel like a big part of it too is just being willing to have hard conversations with your staff, like when the issues come up that are timely. It's very easy to push even smaller things aside as you go. Right? Because you just don't want to deal with the conflict involved. It's not fun to sit down and have a hard conversation with a staff member. But if you don't do it, right, you're not doing that employee a favor by kicking the can down the road. Like if they're not achieving their goals in your organization, like you're better off getting that early rather than letting it drag on, I feel.
And why do you totally agree? So it's easy to say that. Why is it so hard for us as humans and managers and folks to do that? Because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, totally.
I think you grow. I mean, you obviously you're more comfortable working with the people that you work with every single day, and it's tough to make the hard decision to give that up and move on. Yeah.
Is it fear-based, or is it the inverse, that you have a positive relationship with that person as a human, and therefore you don't want to hurt them by making change.
I think it's more fear.
Okay.
I think it's fudding, right? It's
What, sorry?
Fudding, fear, uncertainty, doubt.
Okay.
Right. It's this corporate buzz speak.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
we probably should avoid. But yeah, I mean, it's the fear of maybe making the bad decision and losing them, the fear of offending them and their productivity going down if you address an issue, the fear of it taking up a bunch of your time to even address something, and then the uncertainty, right, comes in there.
Yeah.
What happens if I let him go? What happens if he gets demoralized, right? Or he or she, and then doubt. Like, is this really a big problem?
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I being too hard on him or her? Like, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah, for me, it's lack of practice. Like, because I haven't done it much, it's like, it is fearful for me because I'm like, I don't even necessarily know how to approach the conversation or the right things to say, or I don't want to offend someone, like, you know, so I think it's just like, for me, lack of practice, you know, the things I'm good at, I've practiced a whole bunch. The things I'm not good at, I'm a little fearful of, and because I haven't practiced.
Yeah, and I think that I deal with this with like marketing agencies and stuff. Like, you tell yourself these stories, what if, right? Like, if we think it could be better and we move to someone else, like, you really don't know that there's you don't know what that next path's going to be.
This might not be perfect,
Yeah.
but I know what it is.
Yeah.
And tomorrow it could be worse.
Exactly.
That's a great
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the key to an immersive experience?
What's the key? Well, gosh.
Or what are the keys? There's probably multiple, but what makes an experience immersive, and like, how are you designing that for your business?
Well, I don't think there's, a template, because I think no matter what you're doing, you want it to be semi-bespoke or customized.
What's the
And
process?
One of the things I loved with the group that had come into the Hornblower group was Stephen Otto with the company Walks, was doing a diverse set of things, and he's just brilliant at this, that had things that felt like, I remember doing some of these tours in Europe that felt so like pertinent, relevant, I could relate to it and understand it. And it's like, well, everybody could come see the Sistine Chapel. So it wasn't the location, but it was the guides that he had hired and the time he had invested in making sure they had the tools and the things that they needed to be able to tell a story. Understand the story I'm telling you may be different than the story I'm telling you. And the guide learned that by asking questions and trying to find out more about what their interests were. And so I saw what he did and thought it was brilliant. And so I really think people that want to answer that question, he's the better guy to talk to, not me. If I could live up to seeing some of the things that he was able to do within his organization, I think I and anybody would be on the right track.
It sounds like you are, though. Like, you're creating all of these touch points for customers. You're doing above and beyond experience than just hopping off the cruise ship and then hopping on your boat and like, hey, thanks for coming. Okay, see ya. Like, thanks for the business. You're like creating this whole, front to back experience that I think adds a whole lot to that immersiveness.
Well, and we're there, it's not us. Like, you wouldn't even know we exist as an entity. Our crew wear the name and look and feel of the cruise the cruise. And so we're just in the background. We're hopefully supporting.
They're being immersed without even knowing they're being immersed.
That's
cool.
That's one of the things over the years we've tried to do is, it goes back to being relevant to your guest. And it's hard if you've just got some big corporate logo brand. It's not, nothing against Starbucks, but it's Starbucks or it's a local coffee shop and, you name it. So
It sounds like it always comes back to human capital. Like, it's investing in the people that make everything work.
I think people are more important than you talk about data in baseball. I think data gets you so far. I think Wall Street analysts gets you so far. But the most important point, I'm sorry, of any organization is people. It is people. And we like to discount it. It doesn't matter what it is, from the bottom of the org to the top. If you don't have amazing people, I am sorry. No data, no amount of money, and no amount of opportunity will allow you to be successful.
Sounds like a good way to wrap this up. Yeah. Great point.
All right.
Well, these are lightning interviews. I'm sure we could talk to you for hours. Every time I call this guy on the phone, like, I can't get off the phone with him. And you could probably see why. But we'd love to talk to you more. These are lightning interviews.
No,
Thanks
I get
so
it.
Thanks
We're backed up.
Thanks so much for stopping by and chatting with us.
That was
really
my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
This was
great
awesome.
seeing you all, and looking forward to staying in touch and talking more.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.